Okay, so my film crew and my actors went and left me, and they're probably going to a party since today's New Year's Eve. But here's what would have happened. It would have been set in the future, and there would have been this school, a boys' school, full of just ruffians, roughhousers, not bad kids, but not good kids. And then, but the U.S. would be having conflicts with China, and so they were kind of worried about that. So they sent the boys home, and but bombs, nuclear bombs, they went off while the boys were in the air, and the shock wave killed everyone in the front, which was the adults, and then the plane crashed, and then it goes blank, and then it comes back like someone's opening their eyes, and it's Jack, and he's by a sign that used to say Centralia, but like vandals or whatever spray painted over it, and so it says Centerville. And he kind of looks around, and he gets into this neighborhood, and he hears this ticking, and he's like, well, what is that? Is that like a signal? Is that Morse code? And he looks around, and then eventually he breaks into this house and finds a dead body. And so it wasn't another guy, it wasn't a signal, it was a Geiger counter. And then he takes the Geiger counter and finds a safe house, like a house that's far away from the radiation, and the Geiger counter is not going off. And then he finds a car that, like, the tires are melted to the ground, and it's broken, it's gone, it's beyond repair. But the horn works, so he presses the horn, and then eventually other boys from the plane start to come in. And so then, there's an election, and Ralph wins, and Jack loses, and he's like, but Jack, you and your choir boys can be scavengers, because, we need to find food, and we're going to need probably more shelter, more clothes, yada yada yada. Well, then they start to get, they're doing that, and but they decide they need a way to get rescued. So Jack's like, you know what? I think I might have saw a radio broadcast antenna. So they follow. They have an expedition to kind of look around town, and they find the radio antenna, and they get it started, but they can't figure out the machinery, so they can't put it on an automatic loop. So they say, okay, we're going to have teams of people sitting here and, listening, making sure that no other broadcasts come in, and just every once in a while say, hey, we're stranded here in Centralia, yada yada yada. But eventually, all of the people just get distracted. The people who are on the raiding group, they start raiding, and some of the boys found a game store and started raiding that and playing video games instead. So Ralph gets pretty mad because they have no way of being saved. And then Jack, the final straw is Jack finds a police officer, and they all group around him and kill him to steal his guns. And so then Jack brings back the guns, and then Ralph is like, oh, where'd you get those? Oh, from a police officer. And then he's like, are you kidding me? You could have gotten help from the police officer. And so then that's the final straw, basically, is what happens. But then, then they kind of get to talking. The little uns are really scared because they've been hearing weird noises, and people have been getting sick, and they say there's an invisible beast, which is kind of a reference to the radiation, sort of. But there's still the whole savagery thing. So then they decide to split up. So Jack and his choir boys become the raiding tribe, and then Piggy and the rest of them, which eventually all move over to Jack's tribe. But Jack's tribe takes up shelter in an abandoned armory up on a hill. But there's still weapons in it. And then at one point in time, Jack and his raiders capture a guy and just kind of as a joke leave him to the invisible beast as an offering, which basically what they would do is throw him in a pool of radiation, and then a little while later Simon would come and the guy would just be dead but like glowing, and his face would be melting, but he'd be dead. So basically he'd be a ghoul. I played Fallout all winter break, so there you go. Fallout 3. Fallout 1 is boring. And so then what would happen is Simon would pass out because of the radiation. Then he would go back and say, "Oh no, guys, the beast. I think that the beast is like us not being cautious, our savagery," and then Jack would they would go and shoot him up. So obviously, you know, this is a little bit different from Lord of the Flies, but I think it's better. I think it needs a revamp. And then Jack's tribe goes back to the house, the safe house, which Piggy and you know, some of the other people are in, and they steal Piggy's Geiger counter, and then they, you know, trash the place. They set fire to the food or throw it outside or something, and so that's really bad. So then eventually Ralph decides that he needs to him and Piggy need to confront Jack and get the Geiger counter back so they can find a safe house. And they go to the armory and they're like, "Hey, I'm Piggy, I need the Geiger counter." And then they'd be like, shut up, you pig." And they'd look like Jack would be out a window. They'd be talking out a window, and then they would bring him a missile launcher. There was a missile launcher in the armory, and it'd be like, and it would completely obliterate Piggy. And then just then, while they were chasing after Ralph with guns, there'd be kind of like a rumble, and there'd be like some patriotic music playing, not literally playing, but like that's what would be playing in the movie, and the army would drive in and save them. So that's what would have happened. It would have been great. Thanks.